Почитувани гледачи, добро вечер, добро дојдовте во уште едно издание на Јади Бурек на телевизија Сонце. Вечерва интервју ќе имаме со господинот Джейсон Мико. И нема да се свртам на компјутерот, нема да идам преку Skype. За прв пат во мојата емисија, во мојата кариера, лично тета-те со господинот Джейсон Мико овдека во студио. Good evening, Mr. Miko.
Good evening, Janko. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming to me.
Always a pleasure to be in Macedonia.
Thank you very
Always
much.
a pleasure to be in the Republic of Macedonia.
Excellent choice of words, my friend. Mr. Miko, because we know each other for more than a decade, we came some kind of close through our love for this country and your dedication to Republic of Macedonia. So I'm very happy to have you in studio to talk about everything. But first, as a good host, I know that you're a big fan of Brian Ferry and Roxy music. So please do me an honor and announce the song to start with a good vibration this talk.
Well, that would be Slave to Love by Brian Ferry.
Океј, почитувани гледачи, ете малку загревање, бидејќи нашето пријателство прв пат кога искомунициравме со господинот Мико, беше првиот концерт на Roxy Music во Македонија кога дојда и како голем фан и познавач тогаш имавме една комуникација со него и ги презентиравме Roxy Music и нивниот настав во Скопје. Roxy Music in Skopje 10 years ago?
2006.
2006.
12 years ago.
12 years ago. No. Ја ви се извинувам, почитувани гледачи, ние нема да идеме ни со сабтайтл, нема да идеме ни со симултан превод. Джейсон Мико е пријател на Македонија многу одамна и може ми дали ќе се навратим бидејќи немаме никаков договор за што ќе разговараме вечерва, но љубовта кон оваа земја ќе не води низ овој разговор. Секако и љубовта низ музиката, така нема да се држиме строго. Но нема да ви преведувам секоја негова реченица, но кога ќе дојде до некои политички важни работи, ќе се потрудам колку можам. Бидејќи оваа емисија ќе биде гледана прилично во диаспората, предпоставам дека многу од македонците во Канада, во Соединетите држави, во Австралија, лесно ќе можат да го разберат господинот Джейсон Мико што говори и како говори. Така што, сега ќе почнам, ја ќе се трудам на мојот broken English или Indian English, нешто да излечам од него, господинот Мико ќе ме покрива многу подобро. So, I hope that you will cover me much more better than I speak in my broken English, but I'm very proud because I managed to make a lot of friends in the world, even with this low level of my grammar. Miko, it's very rare to come in Macedonia, and when you came, it's your private business, etc. But correct me if I'm wrong. Did I see some photos and videos of you a couple of days ago? You're on stage?
Yes, indeed. I was at the rally sponsored by Todor Petrov and the World Macedonian Congress for Bokatiram on Saturday night. Mm-hmm. He asked me to speak, and I just happened to be in town, so I was happy to lend my voice.
So, what did you tell to the people? What was your message?
First message, since it was on September 8, was a very happy Independence Day to Macedonians everywhere, to Macedonians in the Republic of Macedonia. That's the most important message, because we were celebrating the 27th independence of the Republic of Macedonia. So that was the first message. The other messages were kind of talking about, what to expect in the future with this referendum that's coming up, and why I think it's not necessarily a good idea for Macedonia. And so I just kind of gave a few thoughts on that.
Very nice. I hope so that you will share those thoughts tonight with us, your thoughts about political agreement, about the referendum. But tell me, did you especially came here on an invitation from Boykotiram? Го прашувам Джейсон Мико дали е поканет како дел од Бойкотирам или slučajno se najde, or it was accidentally to be here well and to be a guest on rally?
Janko, thank you for the question. I come to Macedonia 2-3 times a year on my own business, simply to see friends, because I love Macedonia and I love the Macedonian people. And so I wanted to come specifically for Independence Day and also for Brian Ferry. So it just happened to be a perfect convergence of events.
Many Macedonians goes to Greece on Independence Days, and Jason Miko from United States came to Macedonia on the Independence Day. How nice.
Well, I want to tell you, in 2006, when Roxy Music was here for the first time,
Yes.
I was on your show.
Yes.
And you asked me a question. You said, what does Roxy Music coming to Macedonia mean? And this is 2006, so 12 years ago.
Did I ask that?
You asked me that question.
Thank you very much for remembering.
I know, because I wrote it down. And I looked at you and I said, it means that Macedonia is just another normal European country. The government here is telling Macedonia that if they vote for this referendum, Macedonia will become a European country.
Okay.
Macedonia is already a European country. It always has been a European country. It will always be a European country. And here's the funny thing. So a year later, Brian Ferry came here, not with Roxy Music, but with his own band. And we had a dinner hosted at Vodenica, Molino, and Tikvesh, I think, hosted it. And my friend Јади from Tikvesh gave a toast. And then he asked me to stand up and give a toast, and I wasn't really prepared. But you got Brian Ferry over here and the whole band at this big table, this big dinner. And I told that story about the year before, and when you asked me what does Roxy Music coming to Macedonia mean, and I said it means that Macedonia is just another normal European country. And I looked at the table, I looked at Brian Ferry and the band members, and I said, it's not part of your job description to make people feel good about themselves and their place in the world. But that's one of the small benefits that you give to the Macedonians, to make them feel that they are European and to let them know that this is their place in the world. And I said, so for that, I thank you.
Wow, feelings. Feelings. You knock me down.
Wow.
Let me explain to the viewers.
2006
година Джейсон Мико беше гостин кај мене во емисија. Јас сум заборел, тогаш зборевме за Roxy Music кога гостува, и јас сум го прашал, он ме потсети сега, сум го прашал што значи доаѓањето на Roxy Music во Македонија. Он одговорил дека Roxy Music, доаѓањето на Roxy Music во Македонија значи дека Македонија е една нормална светска земја, уште една нормална земја од светот. Една година подоцна, кога Брайан Фери доаѓа сам со својот бенд на соло, овдека на вечера во Воденица, која организирала Тиквеш и така натаму, му побарале да одржи здравица, и на таа здравица го кажал ова што го кажал во емисија кај мене, и им рекол, не е ваша работа да им правите на луѓето да се чувствуваат добро затоа што доаѓате кај нив и им ја свирите музика, но вашата појава со тоа that Brian Ferry came to because of the fact he is in Macedonia makes the people feeling good, they are normal, they are part of the world, дека се нормални, дека сме дел од светот. The first feeling about this I have in 1993 or 4 when we I was part of the radio when we bring Prodigy, but at that moment Prodigy was second album, Music for the Jilted Generation, and it was very big hit, not very famous around other countries, but on the Western world it was very famous. So it was quite impossible to have such a big star at that moment when he's on his rise. And the same feeling was with the Roxy Music. You know, when you have such a big name came to you, you said, okay, we are part of the world. But let me ask you something. Roxy Music, it's a music, it's an artist, it's a people, it's an ambassador of art, but also the politician, some kind, any kind. We have Theresa May, we have Angela Merkel, we have a big delegation from Donald Trump coming. So, do we have to feel good about those people coming here and with messages, go to referendum and be a part of the world? What's your opinion about this?
That's a great question, and thank you. I'm going to speak as an American. I'm going to speak about the Americans that are coming through here. And we will have the Secretary of Defense, James Mattis. Wes Mitchell has been through here. I think others have, others will. President Trump sent his congratulations on Independence Day, saying congratulations to the people of the Republic of Macedonia on Independence Day. Oh, and by the way, we support the Prespa Agreement. Secretary Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State, basically said the same thing. But here's the thing, and I've been trying to tell people this, Janko. Number one, President of the United States and the Secretary of State don't write those agreements. They don't write them, they don't read them, they don't sign them. Those are just protocol, they're sent out. So they honestly don't know the full situation of what's going on here.
I can't believe that.
Well, this is the way the State Department works. This is the way the European Union works. When Secretary Pompeo receives Foreign Minister Dimitrov, as he did, I think, 2 weeks ago, he gets maybe a half-page memo explaining the situation and what's going on. And that's his understanding of what's going on. Now, as the former CIA director, he might know some more, but that's what a typical Secretary of State gets. And that memo is prepared by the DAS, the Deputy Assistant Secretary, and others. All that information, of course, comes from Kale, in this case. So what it reflects, those statements reflect, and Mattis, James Mattis, is a hero and a fine man and a decorated military man. But
who is he?
The Defense Secretary.
Defense Secretary.
Yeah, and he'll be here in the next couple of days, I believe.
Okay. He'll be
here to support.
Znači, minister za odbrana, to bi bilo, Secretary of Defense, to je nešto kako minister za odbrana, znači najvisoki od čovek vo vladata da razberat, vo vladata na Donald Trump, na Sojedinetите državi, koji je odgovoren za odbranata.
But I guarantee you, none of these people have read this agreement. They don't know what's in it. What's in this agreement, the people on Kale have all read it, of course.
And they send, okay,
but
people,
they send
Macedonia agreed,
yeah.
And it's okay.
They send a simple statement to the State Department, to the President, to the Department of Defense, and saying, you know, this agreement will solve all of the world's problems, manna will fall from heaven, choirs of angels will sing hallelujah, and all will be right with the world. And that's very simple, it's very simplistic, and it's not true. There's all kinds of problems that will come out of this agreement, and we can talk about those later, but I want to bring up one important point. So, my ambassador, Jess Bailey, the majority of the Americans that work at the U.S. Embassy, majority of Americans in the U.S. State Department absolutely despise and hate Donald Trump and the Trump administration. They hate the conservative movement, which he is the titular head of. And I find that funny, also, that Zoran Zaev and the government here, by and large, probably absolutely hate Donald Trump and the Trump administration. And yet, it's all smiles and welcoming signs to bring in the Americans and others. Angela Merkel probably can't stand Donald Trump either. So it's this, you know, two sides.
Is it possible, let me explain to the people, znači, on kaže дека ministra za odbrana. Explain me one more thing about the Ministry of Defense. Ministry of Defense, you thought so that he is not quite full aware of all the consequences we will show up from this agreement.
No high official in the U.S. is aware of what's in this agreement.
Okay. Gospodin Miko го објаснува дека американците го поздравуваат, како и сите европски лидери, како и сите светски лидери, го поздравуваат овој договор, затоа што никој од нив нити има време, нити седнува да го, сега парафразирам, се извинувам, да го прочита и анализира овој договор кој е направен. Они се избрифирани, помалку или повеќе, се избрифирани дека имаме договор и дека тој договор е добар и ги средува сите проблеми, малце во иронија, како што рече, the angels will sing hallelujah from the heaven. Дека сето тоа ги решава сите проблеми на теренот. Но, она што го поентираше е, вака како американец, македонец тешко дека би се осмелил медиумски јавно ова да го каже. Macedonian will be very hard for any politician to say what you say tonight here about American embassy, Jess Bailey, and most of the people from the foreign office, from the
European Union?
No, the people who work on a diplomatic...
the State Department.
State Department. Right. Thank you very much. И луѓето кои работат во State Departmentот, тоа е она за односи со странство, амбасади и така натаму, се повеќето луѓе наместени во времето на Клинтон, на Обама, и се претежно од таа политичка проминенција која едноставно не ги сакаат републиканците, го мразат, лична омраза спрема Доналд Трамп и нивните брифинзи се онака како што им одговара за да ова се протне. Реакцијата што ја имаме со писма од Доналд Трамп, честитки и така натаму, се врз основа на овие брифинзи кои они им ги даваат и многу што. So it's very difficult for me. My thoughts were that all of this suddenly happened, not just here, but in a greater region after the meeting with Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin in Helsinki. So I thought this meeting that is something like small Yalta. So we take Macedonia, don't touch Serbia, leave Kosovo, we will retrieve from Ukraine, and something like this. So I think that Macedonia is a part of the bigger picture which is already set between two great leaders.
Now that's an interesting theory. I haven't heard that necessarily like that.
This is my opinion.
Yeah.
I am not analyst.
Sure.
I'm just emotionally feeling the things.
Yeah.
So sorry.
No,
Please
that's fine. But
prove me wrong.
But it's your thought. I have my own thoughts, and it's funny because you mentioned two. You said the number two there. Two great powers.
There is no more two powers. Yes, you're right.
Well, yeah, there's more than that. You know, everybody forgets about China.
Yes, and India and Brazil.
But in terms of power, China is an incredible power. Nobody,
of course,
the media tends to ignore it. Some of the media tends to ignore it, and the Chinese, they think long term. To them, long term is 500 years. To Americans, long term is 6 months. But I don't want to talk about China.
This is good.
That's true.
This is very good.
That's true.
I don't believe that Americans are working on a 6 months, but they're working on a 10, 20 years.
Maybe.
Maybe.
But there are, so the English author, C.S. Lewis, writes in one of his books about two sides. There are, just as there are only two genders in life, there's only male and female, there's nothing else. There's only two sides. There's right and wrong, good and evil, light and darkness, etc.
And shades between?
No.
Thank you very much.
And our friends that are coming here and pushing this agreement, our friends here that are pushing this agreement, whether they know it or not, are part of one side. And that side includes those who believe in kind of global governance. Not global government, but global governance. Janko, 90%, maybe 95% of the people in the embassy, the Americans, and in the State Department are atheists. Secularists, agnostics. They don't believe in God, they don't believe in heaven, they don't believe in hell. They want to make their heaven here on earth. They believe in the perfectibility of mankind, that mankind can be made perfect. And so, again, whether they know it or not, all of this that's going on really is a part of that project. With them, of course, as the high priests and the high priestesses of this New World Order. That's what's going on, in my opinion.
But New World Order is good for the United States and for the citizen of United States. This is a fight for keep the dominance of the United States. Why do you fight against your country to lose their dominance? Is there the religion, the Jesus talk to you, that is, you cannot enjoy the benefits if others suffers?
Well, you know, any global governance project takes away sovereignty from the individual nation states. And the European Union leaders are very open about that, talking about how if you want to join the European Union, you must give up sovereignty. It is a sovereignty-sucking project from the individual nation states.
And who will lead?
Well, it'll be the bureaucrats, the unelected, the unaccountable in Washington, Brussels, and other places.
But who will elect them?
Well, no.
Who will control them?
There is no control, there is no election, there is no accountability.
Really?
No.
There is no big six dark people like Marvel, like Thanos who will pulling the strings. No, they want a faceless world. They cannot call to your leader, to your hero. There is nothing and nobody. Collectivity like Switzerland, like ex-Yugoslavia with 6 presidents, and you don't know who is your leader, who is leading you. Just bureaucrats.
Well, there will be some faces, obviously, but it will largely be a bureaucratic army.
Oh, this is very interesting view.
But we saw the other day how Viktor Orban, the Prime Minister of Hungary, was viciously attacked in the European Parliament.
Yes.
The former Prime Minister of Belgium, Guy, I'm going to pronounce his name incorrectly, but Guy Verhofstadt, was on the floor of the European Parliament ripping into not only Orban, but a Polish MP who I enjoy his writings and others. And he was almost unhinged. It was just because he's angry. They're all angry at Orban and Poland, now Italy, Slovakia to a degree, because they believe people like Guy Verhofstadt and Jean-Claude Juncker and Merkel and Macron, etc., believe that there is only one way, and that's their way, to creating a perfect European Union. And you can't have an alternative opinion about that. Everything that goes into that is things like when they talk about European values, it's what they dictate from on high. So one of the problems I think that Macedonia has is that Macedonia has a deep tradition. It's a conservative society. It's deeply religious. All of these things are not in line with the European Union project. And so part of bringing Macedonia into the European Union is to stamp out this stuff. You've seen, I mean, look, we could get out the statistics to see how irreligious Europe is. And that doesn't translate just into the closing of churches and houses of worship. But more importantly, or equally importantly at least, it translates into basically a death spiral, because you're losing population. They're not having babies, or they're aborting babies. And if you can't keep up with what's called the replacement rate of a population, I think it's 2.14 children per woman of childbearing age. If you can't keep up with that as a society, you're dying.
But they wanted, why us? Why bring others from other parts of the world with other religious view to kill this religion, to kill these people, to kill this moral, and to bring some other moral, Buddhistic, Islamic, etc., etc. Why is that better for them? Почитувани гледачи, пред да ми одговори господинот Мико, јас се извинувам, малце забегавме сега по суштествено, емисијава ќе ви биде преведена и ќе ви биде репризирана титлувана. Се извинувам што во моментов, дури и да имам преведувач, ќе биде невозможно да го имаме овој разговор на ваков начин Или да беше снимена едноставно господинот Мико го имам сега. When you leave? You will be here?
Late next week.
Next week. Значи, многу кратко е тука, за да имам можноста, и ја немам технички можности да ја снимам емисијата, па да ја иститлувам, па да ви ја дадам. Значи, откако ќе ја направам до викендот, ќе биде иститлувана, така да што вие, бидејќи многу интересни до сега unspoken things from political view and from religious view in one amalgam was spoken in this show tonight from you. This is very original. This is president and бидејќи ова е со преседан, ова е до сега не го имал некој вака да го збори, мислам дека ќе биде важно. Затоа ве молам, или фокусирајте се да го разберете англискиот, кој веќе ако имате мобилен, сите знаете чат-пат англиски, но бидете трпеливи, за некој ден ќе го имате ова се со превод како што треба и емисијата ќе ви биде преведена. Ја ви гарантирам со дека се е на место и коректно кажано, значи зачувани се сите оние пристојности, така што само малце исчешуваме што не можам во моментов да ви ги преведам сите работи. I have to explain to people why don't we have a translation at this moment, and even if we do, those spoken things will be very difficult for simultaneous translation to be taught, because it was voice and the color of the voice and how was spoken. It was very important and very impressed. I'm very impressed of your words in this couple of minutes. So please continue.
Thank you. Well, again, I think when you ask why they're doing this, I think it's a combination of things. I don't think there's any one answer, and that is, number one, because European populations are not reproducing, and because they're aborting babies, they still need a workforce to do the menial jobs, and the upper class is not going to do that, so they have to import populations from other places.
I don't care which religion, what the way of life is, as long as they have their own profit.
Right. It's a little more nuanced than that, I think.
I simplified just.
So there's nothing wrong, and there's everything right with bringing immigrants into a country. We're a nation of immigrants, the United States. But
I thought that you're maybe from Hungary?
Well, I'm Hungarian by ethnicity.
Okay.
Yeah, my great-grandfather came over in 1910 or something like that. But here's the thing. When my great-grandfather came to America, he assimilated. He became an American. He adopted the culture and the ways. He was Catholic, so he fit in from that standpoint.
Okay.
He raised his children to be Americans. They assimilated as a family. So there's nothing wrong with immigrants coming legally to Europe, to the various European countries, but they have to assimilate. When they don't assimilate, you have two separate cultures living in the same country, and as we know from Macedonia,
multicultural is not good.
No, and it was Angela Merkel, David Cameron when he was prime minister, and
yes, Angela Merkel was most important reason that multiculturalism doesn't work.
Yeah, and David Cameron said that, and Sarkozy, when he was president, said the same thing. They all said it at the same time. I thought it was fascinating. And of course, the mainstream media ignored it. But they're right. You have to assimilate. And this is the problem that Europe is having right now.
When you're in Rome?
When you're in Rome? Well, I think that refers to something else. But
yes,
when you're in Sweden, you bloody better well be Swedish.
Of course.
Now, that doesn't say you give up the language of your homeland or your customs or your religion or whatever, but you've got to respect the dominant faith, the dominant culture, the language, etc.
And so, the laws.
Sorry?
And the laws.
Well, first and foremost, the laws. Yeah, because these are all hopefully...
There is no two countries in the world with the same justice system.
Yeah, no, you can't have English law and Sharia law coexisting side by side. It won't work.
And they very hard to do that. And we see how is the situation in Brighton now.
Yeah, Brighton, Bradford, all these places.
Bradford, yes.
So Bradford's my middle name. So So they either, going back to your question, the leaders that are allowing immigrants to come in either don't understand that or they don't care. But at the same time, populations, European populations, obviously we've seen that, they're pushing back. Orban's been re-elected for a third term, the Italian elections. The Swedes have made inroads, the right parties over there.
England Brexit.
England Brexit, exactly. Yeah, I think that was more for financial reasons and because Brussels was taking sovereignty away from the English. But you're going to see more of this. And I don't think the European leaders understand this, or they don't want to understand this, or they want to just keep pushing with this more Europe project, hoping that the people will not see this. Nothing to see here, move along.
It's not the Russians, it's not the Chinese. It's their own mind and own philosophy of faceless world.
Do you remember I think it was 1963, could be wrong on that, film with Alan Arkin. The Russians are coming, the Russians are coming.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the film poster on your
Yeah, I posted
Facebook,
that.
yes.
I posted that today because I was out at a typical, wonderful Macedonian dinner last night with friends, and we were talking about these things, and that's one of the things we thought about.
You don't call me. I'm sorry. Sorry.
It was during the middle of your show.
Don't worry.
Okay.
Just kidding.
But yeah, look, are the Russians trying to interfere in elections? Yeah. Are the Chinese trying to interfere in elections? Yeah. Do the Americans interfere in other elections? In a way, they do. It's more open and honest and transparent. But when Obama writes an op-ed in favor of England, the UK remaining in the EU, that's a bit of an interference. Is me being here a bit of an interference? I'll admit to that, yeah. Is James Mattis coming here and saying you need to vote yes in the referendum interference? Yeah. That's the way it works in this world these days. You can have legitimate interference. Now, when we talk about election interference, the type that the Russians and the Chinese have been accused of, that's wrong. That should be stopped. But that's up to the individual countries to figure out how to do that.
Do you have problems because of your political views about situation in Macedonia? Especially, do you have any pressure from embassy, from Ambassador Bailey? Do you have any contact with him and how it goes if you have?
Yeah, no pressure, no interference. No, I've met the man once. I'm sure he's a likable guy. I probably wouldn't mind sitting down and having a beer with him. Apparently, he knows a lot about baseball. Big baseball fan, so that's a thoroughly American sport, part of our American culture. And I'm sure I could sit down with him and have a pleasant conversation. But on philosophy and political beliefs and policy, I think we are
two separate worlds.
Two separate worlds, two sides.
You're a believer.
Absolutely.
You're Orthodox.
I am.
Yes. That's very interesting. I want to know, to people to know that you're Orthodox in Macedonian Orthodox, Macedonian Church, but it's very wrong to have a Macedonian, Bulgarian, Greece. We are Orthodox. We are Jesus people. We don't have passports when we go. Who are you, Macedonian? No, you're a Jesus believer. Sorry about this. Very difficult time. Do you think that all of these people, because you know the Bible, you know the words, you know the prophecy, do you think that nothing should surprise us? What's coming next?
Great question. Jesus talks about he came to bring the kingdom of God. He didn't come to change at the time the kingdom that was on earth, the Roman Empire. He came to talk about personal, individual transformation for us as individuals and our relationship with God the Father.
Not the politic.
He wasn't here to overthrow the Roman Empire, which it's fascinating from a historical standpoint because
he could.
He could have, obviously. The Jews and his own disciples thought that he was there to overthrow the Roman Empire.
There's the ontological
Yeah. So, and this is fascinating too, because it's a stark difference, I think, between Christianity and Islam. Islam is both a theological system and a political system. Christianity is all concerned with man's relationship with God, recognizing that man is a sinner, and that in order to overcome that sin, man has to recognize and believe in God the Father and Jesus Christ the Son. And that's, to me, that's, we're going afield of this, but yes, so to your point a moment ago, nothing should surprise us. Jesus also said in the New Testament that we're not battling against earthly powers. The battle is against spiritual darkness, Satan and his demons. That's the battle. But the battle has already been won. And so our friends that don't believe in God or heaven or hell or anything, they only believe in mankind. I think it was Marx who said that the highest form of man is man. Which is empty at the end of the day. So for them, they're lost. And that's too bad.
Thank you for these words. More preaching than political
More
discussion.
poetry than politics, yeah.
But we will go to politics. I will ask you for a short recess and we will continue.
Cool.
Почитувани гледачи, по кратка пауза ќе го продолжиме разговорот кој, како што ви кажав, ќе биде субтитлуван и ќе биде реемитуван овдека во емисија. Одиме. Мојот гостин се зборевме за филмови, за поп култура, за филозофија, за се и се што едноставно човеков е прекрасно друштво за продуховеност, за убав и пријателски разговор. I would like sometimes to have a dinner with you, but I'm a Johnny Walker Black Label man more. After Blade Runner, I am a fan. Sorry. Сега со господинот Мико ќе го замолам да поразговараме. Со него разговаравме и по Skype тогаш и сега уште еднаш. Зошто се сомнева во договорот од Преспа и што мисли кои се последиците од тоа ако ние го ратификуваме овој договор? So, Jason, tell me, why do you suspect in this agreement from Prespa and what do you think will be the consequences if this agreement will if it's implemented, ratified, etc.?
Well, I think there's a lot of problems that will come from the agreement if it is implemented that we can identify, and there's a lot of other problems that nobody knows. The known unknowns that Donald Rumsfeld talked about. But just some of the problems. So let's take a look at education. So under this agreement, the commission will be set up. It will have various members of both governments. They'll meet a couple of times a year. They'll report back to the prime ministers. But history books, school books, history books, maps, atlases, teaching guides, all of those things are going to have to change to reflect what this agreement says. And they're going to have to be changed to the liking of Greece, not Macedonia. Why? Because Greece holds all the cards still. You've got a period of time before Macedonia theoretically joins the European Union, for instance. NATO's a shorter track. But during that time, if Macedonia doesn't do what Greece wants it to do, Greece can always threaten to withhold its vote on a positive vote on European Union membership. As you open each one of the different chapters of the accession process to the European Union. So we know that, I mean, let's just go back to yesterday. Panos Kamenos, the defense minister of Greece, junior partner in the Greek government, leader of the independent Greeks, has vociferously said that he will not support this agreement, that the independent Greeks will not support this agreement. But he sent his greetings to Macedonians yesterday, and he said, there is no Macedonian identity and there is no Macedonian language. That statement reflects the broader consensus throughout Greece, throughout politicians, the bureaucracy, academia, the church, think tanks, and the citizens and media. They don't believe a Macedonian identity exists, nor do they believe a Macedonian language exists.
But if they ratificate this agreement, I don't care what they think. Yesterday was Mr. Gerovsky here. He was
Branko, my friend.
Yes. And he was very defensive of this agreement and the referendum. That yes, we will lose something, but we will continue to exist. Our language, our identity, it won't be a zagroženi, threatened.
Okay.
Okay, sorry,
No.
English. He was very confident about that. That agreement allows us to call us Macedonians, not Northern Macedonians, but
Right.
Macedonians with Macedonian language.
I respectfully disagree. I think, given the history and the behavior of successive Greek governments, past Greek governments, current Greek governments, I think future Greek governments, their stated goal is to remove any talk, thought, or mention of a Macedonian people, a Macedonian identity, a Macedonian language. This is a long-term project to try and eradicate the Macedonian identity. And this, I think, is just one more step in that. And when you start changing history books, textbooks, school books, maps, atlases, teaching guides, when you, Greece, tell the Macedonians that, okay, you're a country, we recognize that, you're a people, but your history, your culture, everything about you is limited to the current borders of the Republic of Macedonia and since independence, 1991. That's essentially what Greece is saying in this agreement.
Wow, repeat this, please.
What Greece is saying to Macedonia in this agreement is that essentially your history, your culture, everything that makes you unique is limited to within the current borders of the Republic of Macedonia and since independence in 1991.
Let me translate this. This is very important. Znači, според гледањето на господинот Джейсон Мико, овој договор, она што го се однесува на македонски идентитет, what is called for Macedonian identity, ќе биде само и исклучиво во рамките на границата на државата Северна Македонија. Бидејќи идентитетот and the culture is always spreading around. This time
You can't contain culture. Culture.
Значи, ова култура ќе биде contained, како го викаат тоа превод, ќе биде затворена, ќе биде фатена само тука додека сте вие. So, do you basically tell me that until this agreement, the time worked for us, but after this, the time will work for the Greeks?
I think so. I mean, look, the government is saying in its promotions around the country right now
Okay.
that under the agreement, the Macedonian identity will be recognized.
Yes.
But it's already recognized. The Macedonian language is already recognized.
Yes.
It's taught at Arizona State University, 170 kilometers from where I live. It's taught all around the United States. It's taught all around the world. It isn't in jeopardy. There's no reason, and it should never have been a part of this agreement to begin with. But because the Greeks are so insistent on eradicating any talk of a Macedonian identity or a Macedonian language, I believe that this agreement over time, if implemented, will contribute to weakening the Macedonian identity.
Значи, ако се прифати овој договор, со време ќе го ослаби македонскиот идентитет. What means to weaken Macedonian identity? What concrete will be on the streets? Let's be practical, not just we lose ourselves and etc., etc. What it will means for our grandchildren, okay? How their life will be. What do you think? How on the streets, on the work, on the payment will be affecting this agreement on us?
Well, that's a great question. Let's take a look practically. If the Macedonian identity is weakened to the point that nobody really believes they're Macedonian.
Okay, like we was in Yugoslavia, almost give up on Macedonia identity to become Yugoslavian.
Right.
Okay.
But your neighbors, there are certain neighbors, for instance, our Bulgarian friends, who believe that you're Bulgarian, or
Yes.
that a lot of you are. There are some Serbs who believe that way.
Yes.
Our Albanian friends obviously have a certain claim on certain parts of the territory here.
Yes.
And so if the Macedonian identity is weakened, your neighbors are all going to be claiming, one way or the other, part of Macedonia.
Excellent. But history teaches quite differently. You know, we have a Bucharest Agreement, we have two Balkan wars saying exactly the same thing, which doesn't succeed. So, in a weaker point of Macedonian people, politically,
Culturally.
military, and culture, we provide, we still exist, but today, even if we are threatened, I don't believe if we are agreed to change our identity, they cannot agree between them, divide Macedonia between them.
Well,
It's quite impossible. The history teaches. So my friend understands what are we talking about. I came here to give me the book, which I want. Thank you very much, Baže. That is a Bucharest. This is the proof
okay.
how Macedonia was divided and how they didn't succeed to erase Macedonian identity. So, do you think that we are in a worse position with this agreement than we was 100 years ago?
that's a great question. That's not one I can really answer because I'm...
No, what's your opinion about? We speculate here.
Yeah,
of
no,
course.
because I'm not, I know about the Bucharest Agreement, but I've never read it, so I can't really speak to that. I can only really speak to... But you do bring up a good point, that the Macedonian identity has been threatened in the past and it has continued to survive. And that's my prayer, Janko. I hope it does continue to survive.
And that's
thrive
why we are
and
here.
Succeed. Exactly. So, but I don't think that this will go in that direction. I don't think it will strengthen the Macedonian identity. I think it will weaken it over time.
Why do you believe in Macedonian identity? You're American. You're from Hungarian. So you work with Mr. Boris Trajkovski. You learn about Macedonia. You love this country. That's okay. Everything's fine. I'm not sure that everybody who will came to United States that will be bigger American than you are. You're bigger Macedonian than Macedonians here. Why? Why is that? What is your click in your mind, in your heart, that such a passion for Macedonia and Macedonia to succeed and Macedonia not to change their name and identity? Why?
Because when I first came here, Janko, the Macedonian people opened up their doors and their hearts to me and welcomed me in. And so they loved me first, so I loved them in return.
You know, when Mr. Smith and Neo fight in the Matrix in the final battle, the Neo, which is the incarnation of a devil, ask him, why? Why do you fight? Why? Why? You know what his answer was? I choose to. No, there is nothing godlike like a power of choice, free will, to be more exactly. I don't have to be right, but I choose this side and I stand and fight for it. So there is something godlike, something poetic in that battle. Maybe not practical, maybe not, but it's the power of choice.
Right.
I don't know, how do you think? You don't answer me on a practical view. What do you speculate? What will happen with the Macedonian people after this agreement, after 20, 30 years? What do you mean will cease to exist?
Well, I didn't say you'd cease to exist. I said it will. I didn't say that the Macedonians will cease to exist.
Bulgarian says this is the end of Macedonism.
The Bulgarians say a lot of things. So, well, let's take a look at what Prime Minister Borisov said a few weeks ago, well, last month, right after Linden. Prime Minister Zaev went over there to celebrate Linden and then came back here. I think he gave an interview and he said Macedonia is in a Linden holiday.
Okay.
And then some Bulgarian politicians said, no, it's a Bulgarian holiday.
Yes.
And that forced Borisov to say something, to say basically what Borisov said was, you should be careful about what you say and about playing with history because we hold the cards in voting for NATO and EU membership. And then the president also said something. Then Zaev...
Ooh, hold your horses, Mr. Miko. Maybe this is the point. Don't you think that all of this game and giving up and etc. is the main reason to push Macedonia at any cost to be a member of EU and NATO? And after that, maybe because you said that Zaev sometimes said one thing and doing the other. Maybe this is some part of the Thanos plan to, okay, yes, we are Bulgarian, yes, we are Greeks, just put us in NATO. And when we came into NATO, what leverage will be taken to implement, to call myself North Macedonia? Maybe there will be a law. Janko, you can never say on a live TV show that you're a Macedonian, you're Northern Macedonian. So after we came into NATO and I still say, okay, I'm a Macedonian. So what can you do to me?
Sure, I've heard that argument from a number of people, and it's on its face, it's quite reasonable, assuming that at some point, if this is implemented, you get into NATO and the European Union, you can simply take the agreement and rip it in half and say to Greece, sorry, we are who we are. However, at that point, you have already changed your constitution, and it's going to be hard to change it back because of the Badenturg rule, etc. And during that time of the implementation...
And the laws will be implemented.
Right.
And after I will go to jail.
Yeah,
if I say so.
Yeah, but yeah, that's true. I mean, look, let's be honest. All agreements are worth the paper they're written on internationally.
Okay.
Which means nothing. At the end of the day, if somebody wants to use force or whatever, they can do it. And that's the way the world works. But I think that's, and again, to your point that that's an argument, and it is, it's a very dangerous one, I think, because in the meantime, you're playing with the Macedonian identity. Okay. And you're raising generations of children with new school books, new textbooks, new history books, new maps, new atlases, and they're being forced in the curriculum and in the teaching guides to learn about an alternative history of Macedonia. Will they be able to teach about the Linden uprising?
As a Macedonian, Bulgarian uprising.
I don't know.
Or maybe just an uprising.
Right.
We celebrate Linden uprising.
Right.
Never mind. Like European and leftist want. Don't put any ideological or nationality. We are faceless people.
I mean, I find
What do you think? Is it better to vote against or to boycott the referendum?
I mean, since my Minister of Defense, Secretary of Defense, and Assistant Secretary of State, Wes Mitchell, and others are coming through here, and they're giving their opinion that Macedonians should go out and vote yes, I feel perfectly free to give my opinion. My opinion is on September 30, Macedonians should go to church, thank God for Macedonia, then go out and make Ivar.
My boss, Mr. Georgi Atanasovsky, in the United States they call him George, but still his name is Georgi Atanasovsky. Yep. He didn't change his name like somebody wants. He's a big love. He has a big love for Macedonia, and he trying to make a difference. This whole television, the only reason to exist is because his love to Macedonia, to promote the Macedonian value and Macedonian culture. That is the only and one reason. We don't have Coca-Cola, we don't have any beers, we don't have any profitable brands here which support that we are commercial station.
Right.
We are not. We are part of the love of the one man to make a difference, to preserve Macedonia. And he doing for a couple of decades. Sometimes he was quite understand as a serious. Most of the time they joke about him, but he never give up. He wrote a book about Macedonian Empire, which is also on Macedonian and English. And it will be my honor to give you as a present this book and one more copy to your friends in United States. I hope so there is somebody who will love to see. To keep it as a promise, maybe if this agreement is implemented, maybe it will be forbidden one day to release such books and etc. etc. So you better keep it because you don't know when Fahrenheit 481 will come.
Thank you.
So that is your main point.
I didn't actually say, so I said go make Ivar, but I didn't actually say boycott, but I think it should be boycotted.
Not to say no. Do you believe that why to boycott, why not to vote no?
To make sure it doesn't reach the threshold of 50% plus one.
Okay, if they reach 50% plus one, don't you think if it's more of the people vote against, that will be stronger message? Do you believe that maybe it will be falsified or biased?
Actually, that's a great question, and I wrote a column about that today. I publish it on medium.com in English and svest.mk in Macedonian. Will the referendum be free and fair? There's always that question here. You take a look at the voter rolls. The voter rolls today are the same as they were in 2015, 2016, when the colorful revolution was arguing and screaming about those, but essentially nothing changed. You look at the OSCE report, the monitoring mission that is here now. Their preliminary needs assessment report came up with a number of troubling aspects about the referendum, and you have to question whether or not it will be free and fair.
What do you think?
I don't know. I don't. That's
very honest.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's very fair answer. You know, I'm worried. I believe after this letter from Donald Trump, which is very favorable and very liked here in Macedonia among Macedonian people, Theresa May, Angela Merkel. So people, I feel that people question, okay, maybe this is good when they all came in. Don't worry, you will prevail. We are here to support you. Vote for this referendum, and many people will vote yes.
Sure, and you know, there are perfectly, you know, people have perfectly good and reasonable answers believing, if they believe that they think that this agreement is going to make Macedonia rich tomorrow. But it won't.
It will be very nice.
No. See, the thing is, you're worried about what we call brain drain, young people fleeing Macedonia. But when you look at your neighbors, let's take Bulgaria, for instance. They're a member of NATO, they're a member of the European Union. They're still poor, they still have brain drain. Getting into these organizations doesn't make you rich. It takes hard work, a lot of prayer, a free market economy, the rule of law, low taxes, and adherence to what I call first principles, which we can save for another time. More hard work and more prayer. That's what it takes to get rich.
Do we have a choice at all? All the naval contra, I saw that special forces, I mean logistic officers from United States, which is CIA, NSA, but not in a civil, with a uniform, naval kontra, mornaričko kontrarazuznavanje I taka natamo, dojdeni su ovdje, they came here, and it's very, as a journalist I have that this will go through and this will be implemented, and Macedonia is going to NATO one way or another. There is no other choice, and Americans will not let to slip through their hands Macedonia, and Macedonia must be in NATO. American interest and NATO interest is Macedonia to be in Macedonia. They don't have problem with identity. That is a Greek problem, and all of this is not to have a veto from Bulgaria and Greece.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care about identity. They don't care about anything else but this region, this country to go to NATO, nothing else. And this will be one way or another.
Yeah, no, there's the Guardian newspaper from the United Kingdom, I think Monday or Tuesday, had an article, and it quoted unnamed Western diplomats that said, even if the referendum fails, the will of the people should be respected and the agreement should be implemented. So, at that point, to your point, they're already planning on this is going to go through one way or the other.
So what's the point to boycott or
to send a message?
To send a message.
Absolutely.
For
you still have a choice. You have free will, as you said, to exercise that choice, to vote yes, to vote no, or not to vote at all. That's a choice. And it sends a message that we, the people of Macedonia, we the Macedonians, we the people of the Republic of Macedonia, believe this is a really bad idea. And that, contrary to what other people say, there are always alternatives. This is something that Prime Minister Zaev said a few months ago, that there's no alternative.
Yes.
There's no alternative.
Even Mr. Gerovski said yesterday here that boycott or acceptance of the referendum, go through or done, the sun will shine the next day and we will continue with our lives. Nothing dramatically will change. Mr. Gerovski, who is for the referendum, for this agreement, with this word. Not to be afraid. The next day will rise and we'll be okay, we will go to work, and etc., etc. But with this will be much better. Not best, but better. So, counter-arguments are very good from the other side, and the people are very confused and very divided at this moment. And I'm much more worried about that, Mr. Miko, than this agreement. What after? Because boycott, call people who will not boycott traitors, those who will vote for, asking to go to jail, those people who are against a referendum. My bigger concerns is dividing the people for worse, like colored revolution, which deepened the crack of the society.
The divisions, yeah. Yes. You bring up an excellent point, and this is exactly what's going on in my country, in the United States, and everywhere else around the world. It's this absolute divisions between people, and the vitriol and the language online, etc., has reached incredible levels. And part of that is because of the technology revolution, that you can say these things under anonymity, etc. And but at the end of the day, people have to make a choice in terms of how they behave, and people need to be responsible for that based on, hopefully on their upbringing. And so yes, you're right. That level of division is just it's nasty, and it will divide a country. And so if you vote yes, you're not a traitor. If you vote no, you're not a traitor. If you boycott, you're not a traitor. People are going to make their decision based on what they feel is best for them and their families. I respect that. What I don't respect is if the international community comes in here and says, we're going to ram this thing through whether you like it or not, because you're the little people. And that's what they're doing.
Yes. Yes, I understand, and thank you very much for your kind words. Are you going to make an Ivar?
You know what? I'm embarrassed to say I've only made Ivar once in my lifetime.
So you made an Ivar once in a lifetime.
Yes.
So you're a Macedonian and you're an Orthodox.
Okay.
That's it. Are you going to make it this year or next year? Never mind. But every Macedonian must make Ivar once in a lifetime.
Yes. Good.
Okay. Thank you very much. Hope to see you again. Hope to see you in life, in person. Thank you for your prayer and thoughts personally for me. And thank you to be a kind friend.
Thank you, Janko. Thank you for having me on the show.
Почитувани гледачи, тоа беше се за вечера. Благодарам за вашето внимание. Лека ноќ и пријатно.